Welcome back. Now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna work on the login page. So I'm gonna create a new here page called login.html. And then in this login.html, first I'm gonna copy the header and the body from the index. From the index here, I'm gonna first copy this part, and then I'm gonna paste it in the login, and then I'm gonna again copy the footer part, which is this part, these three lines, and then I'm gonna paste them in the login, and then in between we need to display the navigation as well as the footer. So I'm gonna get the navigation from the index. Here I'm gonna get this navigation, and then I'm gonna paste it in the login, and then I'm gonna close it because we don't want to work on it. And I'm gonna get also the footer, so I'm gonna copy the footer and paste it in the index as well, and then I'm gonna close it because I'm not gonna work on it. Now we need to work on the login form. So in order to work on the login form, I'm gonna create a login section. I'm gonna say here login, and then here I'm gonna create a section. I'm gonna say here section, and for the section, first of all, I'm gonna give it a class. I'm gonna say here class, and I'm gonna give it the margin Y, margin top and bottom 5, and padding Y, padding top and bottom 5. Then inside that, I'm gonna create a div, and for this div, I'm gonna also give it a class, and that class is gonna be the container, and I'm gonna also give it a text center because I want the text to be centered, and I also need margin top and padding top. I'm gonna say margin top 3 and padding top 5. Now inside this div, I'm gonna display here, I'm gonna use h2 to display a text, and I'm gonna give this h2 class, and that class is gonna be the form weight bold, and I'm gonna say here login. Below this login, I'm gonna display HR, and I'm gonna give it a class again, and that class is gonna be MX auto, margin right and left auto. And then I'm gonna create below this, I'm gonna create a div, but before I do so, let's test first. I'm gonna save all, and let me head over to the browser and let me go to the login. So if you go to the login, you'll find that we have here login. Let's now work on the form itself. So below this div, I'm gonna create another div. So for this div, I'm gonna say here class, and then I'm gonna say MX auto because I want again to center this form, and I'm gonna add a container class to it because I want to add margins left and right to it. Now inside this, I'm gonna create the form itself. I'm gonna say here form, and then I'm gonna give this form an ID. The ID would be login form, and inside that form we need a div, and this div is gonna be for the first input. I'm gonna say class form group, and then inside this I'm gonna use the label to display the first info about the first label, about the first input. So the first input is going to be email, therefore I'm going to say here email, and the input itself that's going to allow the user to type their email is going to be the input. I'm going to be using the input itself, and I'm going to give it a type, and the type is text or email. Let's say text, and I'm going to give it also a class, a bootstrap class called form control, and I'm going to give it ID. The ID is important, is very important. I'm going to give it an ID called login email, and also the name. The name is going to be email, and also let's say placeholder. I'm going to say placeholder email, and finally I'm going to say required. So this is for the email. Let me save and let me head on over to the browser and test. So the email here, as you can see, this is the input for the email. Let's create another one. So to create another one, I'm just going to copy this div and then I'm going to paste it below. And we just need to change a few things. So for instead of saying email, we need password. So the user will be able to log in using the email and the password. The type is going to be password. The class form control. The ID is login password. And we need also a name. So the name is password. And the placeholder is password. Lastly, we need to display. Let me first save and show you this. So here, as you can see, we have email and password. Lastly, we need to add a button. So to add a button, I'm going to copy again this div and then I'm going to paste it below. But the button is going to be different. The button doesn't need to have a label. I'm going to remove the label. And the button type is going to be submit. It should be submit. And the class for the input is just going to be btn. We don't need the form control. We need to say btn. And the ID is going to be login btn. Login btn. And the class, we already said that the class is btn. Finally, we need the value. We don't need any of this. So I'm going to remove all of these. Instead, we just need here, we just need value. So the value is login. Let me save and let me head on over to the browser and test. So we should have here a button. Here it says login. But we need to work on the design. But before I work on the design, let's continue and finish this form. So the last thing that we need on the form is the registration URL. We need a link that takes the user to the registration page. Therefore, I'm going to create another div below this one, and this one is going to be a tag. So I'm going to remove this input completely, and then I'm going to say a tag. And for this a tag, I'm going to give it an ID. I'm going to say ID register URL. And the class, I'm going to give it also a class. I'm going to say class btn. Lastly, I'm going to display here don't have account and then here register. Let me now save and let me head on over to the browser and refresh. And as you can see, we have now this button. It says don't have an account, register. Let's now start working on the design. So I'm going to open up the CSS. In the assets, we have the CSS. In the style, that CSS, let's start working on the login. So I'm going to add here a comment first. I'm going to say here login, and first we need to work on. Remember, we have in the login we have the login. I believe we have the login form. So I'm going to start with the login form. I'm going to say here hashtag login form. So for the login form itself, the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the width. I'm going to say width 50% because I want the form to take only this area. I want it to be centered and I want the login form to be small, and I don't want it to take the complete screen width. Therefore, I'm going to say here width 50%. Next, I'm going to say margin 5px auto. This is going to center the form. Next, I'm going to say text align center. But I think we already have given the entire. We didn't. So this text center was for the login, so it's not. So this we need to add this text align center. Next, we need to say padding. We need to add padding. Padding is going to give it a good spaces from all sides. I'm going to say 20px. Lastly, I'm gonna say border top. I'm gonna add border top to it of 1px solid orange. So the orange color that I have been using was this one. Let me now save and let's see how this looks like. So as you can see now, it's much smaller and it's being displayed in the middle. Now let's work on the rest of the form. So in the form itself, we have the inputs. So for the inputs, I'm gonna say here, I'm gonna say login form, and then I'm gonna access the inputs. For the inputs, I want also the size to be 50%. I'm gonna say 50% because as you can see, the inputs are extraordinary big. They are extraordinary big, and we don't want that. I just want them to be extremely small. There is no need to display an email or password field with this huge width. It must be small. So this is for the input, and also we need to add some margins. So I'm going to add here margin 5px top and bottom and auto left and right. The next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to work on the login button design. I'm going to say login form and then login button, login btn. So for the login button, I want the login to have the orange color. I'm going to say background color. So the background color is going to be the orange color, and the color itself is going to be white. The color of the text is going to be white. I'm going to say color and then this color. Similarly for the register, we want the reverse. For the register, I'm going to say here login form, and then I want the register URL. For the register URL, I just want the text to be orange. So I'm going to say color orange, color this color, which is the orange color. Let's now save and let me show you how this would look like. So as you can see now, it looks outstanding. Now the form is not extraordinary big. It's much smaller and it looks amazing. The user doesn't have to fill a huge input. It's just enough for the email and for the password. Also the button fits perfectly with the width of the inputs. Also we have the don't have account button, which looks amazing. It shouldn't be displayed as a button. It should be a link like this, where the color is different but the background is nothing. The background is just white, like the background color of the website itself. And we also have here login, which is being displayed at the top, which is also important to let the user know that this is the login page. So now we have the login page complete.